We talked about the story at the end of last week and just wanted to follow up because it's one thing to send a letter, it's another to get a response. So if you were following the story last week, 3 Montreal borough mayors sent a letter to Valérie Plante expressing their deep concern over the policing of anti-Israel protests over the past year. Those 3 include Mitch Brownstein, who is the mayor of Côte St. Luc. It includes Anthony Housefather, of course, the Liberal MP, and Christina Smith, the mayor of Westmount. And she's on the phone right now. Thanks for being here this afternoon, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here with you.
Let me begin by asking, because this has been going on now for months and months and months, and I know that there have been questions about this in the past. What provoked you to write this actual letter?
Well, we had a meeting a couple weeks ago with the SPVM, with the leadership from the SPVM and with Mayor Plante's office, as well as the leadership on security from her office. Then we followed that up again with another meeting with members of the SPVM, and it was just to sort of set out and recap what we had discussed in those meetings, with some concrete suggestions as to how to better manage these protests, which have been going on for 15 months. Which every city deals with protests. It's an enshrined right in this country, and we all support that, obviously. And I've always said that from the outset. But we've been living with this in our city in particular for 15 months now, and we think there needs to be some better management of how these protests happen on our streets.
So this has been raised, as I said off the top, on more than one occasion. As you said, it's been going on now for over a year. We've had the mayor on, we've had the police chief on. The answer tends to always be the same. They condemn the actions, and they try to de-escalate a situation. But my understanding is, based on your letter, you think we passed the stage now of de-escalation and criminal arrests need to be made. So how did the city respond to that?
So we're waiting on an official response, but they certainly understand our request, and they understand. And so the perspective that I come at this from, so obviously Anthony Housefather as a federal MP comes from a different perspective. Our provincial MNA has been working hard on this as well, and our local MP, Anna Gainey, has been working on this as well. But I come from this as a mayor. I represent the people that live in the area, that work in the area, the businesses that operate in the area, and how this impacts them. I mean, I have zero control over foreign policy. I don't even really have any control over the SPVM because that's an agglomeration responsibility. But it is impacting the people who live and work in the area, and we need to take into their rights, their daily lives into consideration as well. And I just feel like that hasn't been really part of the equation for the 15 months that they've been dealing with this on a sometimes several times a week, happening several times a week in front of their homes, where they can't leave or get in sort of freely without having to walk through a protest. The restaurants, one of the restaurant owners said, if Uber Eats knows there's a protest happening, they don't come. So that's a huge impact on their business, where they have no responsibility in this either. But it's really impacting small businesses and the people that live in the area. So I really believe we need to have some better rules around it. We need to have a better understanding of the timing of them, which we don't now, because you don't currently need a permit to have a protest. So sometimes they're caught off guard. Sometimes they're on private property. Sometimes they're blocking access. And the SPVM has been very present. There's an enormous amount of them at these protests. That also comes with an enormous cost. And we want municipal bylaws enforced around noise and parking. And we want to make sure that people have clear and easy access to their homes.
You know, as I hear you detail this, Mayor, I think to myself, the idea that, there are, you just said, always police. So we know that the police have been out there in numbers. And yes, there's obviously a lot of money associated with overtime and everything else. But at the end of the day, it seems the police are just there to watch these demonstrations happen, allow them to eventually end, and then go on their merry way. And I think that's the big concern that most citizens have. When that's addressed, what's the SPVM or what's the city's response to that?
Well, I mean, I leave the SPVM to respond to that, because that's certainly under their domain. But I think the city's response to that is, we have seen instances where we have an injunction in place. It's clear, it's black and white on paper, and that it's not being respected, and we want that to be respected. So when we have, air horns going at 11:30. Again, we fully respect the right to protest, but 11:30 at night, when which is not typical. They're typically in the afternoon, but there was one late at night where it was very noisy, and we just respect our municipal bylaws. We wouldn't allow in any other context for that to happen, but because it's under the banner of a protest and working towards de-escalation, then obviously that was the rationale for letting that happen. We'd like some rules to be put in place, or rules to be followed for the municipal bylaws that are actually in place.
Which would be great if they were being followed. Clearly, they have been up until now. I will tell you something as well. I had Fadi Daguerre in here, I'm going to say about a month ago, roughly. This was after the anti-NATO protest that had happened down in front of a complex, or in front of the Palais des Congrès. And I know at that time there was a lot made of the fact that there had been 3 arrests, and they sought to say, you know what, that was one protest that had nothing to do with the pro-Palestinian protest. But then I said, and I asked of the police chief directly, I said, people have said, what we're just talking about now, that people simply don't get arrested. They're sort of told to go on, and they regather the next day or the next week or whatever it has to be. And he told me there have been over 100 arrests at various protests. Yes. And I said to him, if that's the case, why don't Montrealers know about this? Because if they did, perhaps they'd stop accusing the SPVM of tolerating these kinds of things.
I don't know what he responded to you. I would imagine it was something along the lines of ongoing cases and things like that. But I do know there have been arrests. There have been several sort of high-profile arrests too that have been, in the media. People have known, seen the pictures. I would ask that. That's a very good question for the SPVM. But if we are going to go forward, continuing like this, right, where it's going to happen a couple times a week, we need to have some rules around how we manage protests, because it's incredibly disruptive. Even though we believe in the right to protest, It is disruptive. It's disruptive to the downtown core for sure. And it's disruptive in what is largely a residential neighborhood in Westmount, which is where many of the protests end up.
I will, by the way, point out to your question about what did he say. I got the impression from what he was saying was that, look, it's one thing for us to arrest them. It's another for them to be charged and ultimately be sentenced if they're going to be.
Yeah.
And there seems to be some kind of an issue with that happening. In other words, we hear about it one day and we're thinking great, and then find out that nothing ever happened to these people, despite the fact they might have been arrested. So maybe the problem lies somewhere else.
The problem may lie in the court, in the judicial system as well. Possibly, but it is, I think if we had a better framework around how the protests unfold, that they'd be managed better.
Yeah. Which makes you think some of these rules that changed, of course, during the Maple Spring when we had all the students out there, so kettling was no longer allowed. You couldn't tell my route. You just said you don't need a permit. I'm hoping, although I'm not sure it's going to happen, I'm hoping these things get brought back, because clearly it's gotten out of control, certainly for people who live in your community and for others as well. And it doesn't seem to be working to prevent these things from happening. They're not over yet. I mean, the only thing that might slow things down now is the fact that winter's here, which is not exactly the best reason.
I think that's what maybe not everybody fully understands as well, that there were changes. And, with the Maple Spring, it was, the courts threw out a lot of these charges, and so that really changed how we manage protests in our city. But we never had as many as this.
Yeah. Look, I have to wrap up because I'm going to run out of time. With respect to the mayor herself, have you heard back from Valerie Plante? Is there another meeting scheduled with you? Did she react to the letter specifically?
Yeah, I mean, listen, she's under the same scrutiny that we are, because she's also the mayor for Ville-Marie. And so she understands it. She is trying to manage it as well. And it's the police force also isn't supposed to be, it's not political, right? Yeah. But it's, I think she understands where we're coming. I certainly asked a question at the last agglomeration council where she responded, where Mayor Plante did respond. So did Mayor Brownstein. He asked a question and Mayor Plante responded to it as well. I think we're aligned on a lot of these issues. It's just in the actual moment when the protest is happening, how it is managed, and we just really hope to have some improvement there.
All right. Well, I think we all do. Mayor, thank you so much. Appreciate your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Christina Smith, the mayor of Westmount, again, calling on the city, the police, the mayor to step up and let's see something change. Maybe she's right. Maybe this all boils down to those things that did change. The court changes, right? which no longer allow police to kettle protesters, which no longer necessarily require you to have a permit to have a protest or lay out a route. May have been all well and good for, then for the Maple Spring, for the students' protest, but it's not working anymore.